Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, and we're actually going to stick to my home county of Skåne here in the very south of the country, and we're going to go back to a brewery who are pretty much revered for their Imperial stouts, and quite rightly so in my experience. So for this one then we are going to go down to Malmö and we're having a look at yet another beer from Brewing. So this one is their latest release through the Lokalt Småskaligt assortment in Systembolaget. This one was released on the 1st of June 2020. It's called Override, and they're describing this one as an Imperial chocolate milkshake stout. Comes in at 10.5% ABV, and compared to the other stouts that I've had from Brewing before, I think this one will be a little bit more just on the sweet end of the spectrum actually, so that makes it a little bit interesting and a little bit quirky compared to the other beers that I've had from these guys before. So yeah, most of the beers that I've reviewed from this brewery have been Imperial stouts. I think the exceptions to that would be the Finally Barley Wine, which was the last one that I reviewed for you, and then also the Switch, which was their Imperial Double New England IPA, which was also a very nice beer. So this brewery are one that are definitely capable of different styles, but at the moment, at least they've not done all that many of them. But yeah, if you're a big fan of Imperial stouts, then this is a brewery that I really recommend that you check out actually. And if you are interested, I recently did an interview with Hannes Gruber, who is the main guy at Brewing, so you can check that out as well. So go into the channel homepage, search Brewing, and the interview video will come up along with all the other reviews that I've done from Brewing as well, and there will be more added to that in the future of course too. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brewing before, and you will see more added to that in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, oblast, prefecture, whatever it is that you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So Brewing, as I've told you already, are based in Malmö and Skåne in the very south of Sweden. And the company was founded by Hannes Gruber and Karin Karlsson back in 2015, and they had their premiere at the Malmö Ale and Whiskey Festival that year. Both of these guys were big beer enthusiasts, and they just wanted to get into the industry. But Hannes had been a home brewer for a very long time, and he got great feedback on his beers and was doing some competing and things like that, and this really inspired him to turn professional. But he comes from a background in software development, and he takes care of the brewing side of things of the company. Of course, I think he was, if I remember correctly, he said he works about 80% in his day job, and then he works 20% with the brewery, but obviously he works a hell of a lot more with the brewery. But Karen, on the other hand, was an entrepreneur and also a trader in the IT industry, and she really helped him get the business kind of things up and running, if you like. But she's not part of the company anymore though, and it is completely run by Hannes these days. So they started out with a very modest production capacity, but they've now become the most highly rated brewery in Sweden on Untappd, if you exclude the meaderies. I think those are the only ones that are beating Brewing actually. So a very well revered and very well liked brewery, I have to say as well actually. But most of the beers that these guys were producing, they were brewed at Lilla Ölfabriken in Chadbeer, and they did this as a gypsy brewery originally, along with some beers being brewed next door at South Plains. But the companies are now officially joined together, so you have a brewing group that's called Lilla Ölfabriken, and this is Brewing, Chadbeer, and also the Lilla Ölfabriken brands as well. So all three of these brands are produced in the one brewery, and they sell the beers separately as separate companies, if you like, or separate brands. But yeah, they've been experimenting more recently with different styles. They had the IPA, the Switch, like I said to you. There are apparently going to be more IPAs coming out from the brewery as well, but mainly they focused on Imperial stouts over the years, but occasionally you can find a barley wine as well. And I do actually have a saison to review from these guys in the fridge as well, so I'm really curious to see how that one turns out actually, because it's not a style that you would expect Naird Brewing to do. But yeah, other than some beer festivals around Sweden, it was actually very difficult to get a hold of the Naird Brewing beers for a long time, but since 2018 they have been doing some releases through Systembolaget. Otherwise you are limited to the likes of Glassbank and Kiosk and things like that, ordering them in from Denmark basically. So yeah, you do get some of the beers through Systembolaget, but mainly you're going to find them through the likes of Glassbank and Kiosk and stuff like that. But as of June 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, they've produced around 70 different types of beers, and you will see more from these guys over the next little while as well. But yeah, the only other thing I can tell you about this brewery is that the name Naird comes from the fact that Hannes says that he is a bit of a nerd, and he's a programmer, and so he does all of these beers tend to be named after things related to software development and stuff like that. So yeah, let's have a go at this beer then and see how we go. And if you want to learn more about Naird Brewing, of course, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And of course, you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and have a taste of this beer then. Sorry about that, guys, the memory card just randomly decided that it had no memory left on it, so yeah, just happens sometimes. Gremlins. Maybe that's another name for a future Naird Brewing beer actually. Maybe Hannes will he can steal that one, he's allowed to do that. So yeah, as you can see, the artwork on this one is pretty similar to what you'll normally find from Naird Brewing. The bottle is sweating a little bit because it's quite warm actually, but yeah, if you look at that closely you can see the binary 0 and 1s at the back of that. I always find that fascinating to think about computers, you know, the whole system, the whole way a computer works, it's just on off, 0 and 1, unless you go into quantum computing when you've got multiple states and things like that. So yeah, this one, as you can see, very, very similar in terms of its art to the other Naird Brewing beers that you're going to come across. This one has a nice sky blue, Scottish blue cap to it actually as well, which is quite nice. And if you watch, again, if you watch my interview that I did with Hannes, you'll see him actually, how he does his bottling and things. It's a very, very clever little machine, and the waxing thing as well is a nice little touch. But yeah, this one should be really interesting. A 10.5% Imperial Chocolate Milkshake Stout, the Override 2020 edition. The other thing I forgot to say about this brewery now that I see it is the open source beer. So Hannes makes all of these recipes available online and things, and if there's one of them that's not there on the website, you can actually contact him and he will give it to you as well. So it's pretty cool actually. He likes to stick to his whole kind of home brewing sort of thing that he's been doing for a long time as well. But yeah, let's get this guy out then and we'll get on with the tasting. I'm really curious to see what this beer has in store for us. The Override 10.5% Imperial Chocolate Milkshake Stout. So yeah, as I say, this is one of the sweeter ones that I'm going to be having from Naird Brewing so far actually. This I think will be one of the sweetest ones that I've had from them. And I can tell you something, you can smell the sort of lactosey, cocoa-y type aromas coming out of this one too. It smells great. Yeah, that's very, very nice. So yeah, that's great. As you can see with this one, it's poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour, which is what you'd expect from an Imperial Stout, to be honest with you. Nothing surprising about this one in terms of its appearance, but you know, these stouts that you get from Naird Brewing rather, are very, very hyped, and they are hyped for a reason. So I'm curious to see what this one has in store for us. If I shine the light through this one, this beer is pretty much black as night. There is no light coming through that at all. You can see that the head on this one, there's about a quarter or a third finger of a frothy, very kind of medium tan head on this one, to be honest. It's not the darkest tan that I've come across, but it is fading away to be a very, very thin foamy layer at the moment, and the sort of ring around the edge of it is remaining very nicely there. If we sugar the beer up, of course, you will get a little bit more of the head coming back, but just look at the kind of lacing on the glass there. This thing is thick as hell. And that's what you want from a kind of sweet stout actually. You usually want them to be nice and thick and nice and creamy actually too. So yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but you can see a few little ones just creeping up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall, I have to say it looks very, very nice. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Ooh, that smells nice. It actually does smell. It's got a good little bit of a kind of darker quality to it, this one. I mean, when you call it like an Imperial chocolate milkshake stout, you do expect it to smell like just kind of almost overpoweringly sweet actually, but this one does retain like quite a nice bit of darkness to the base. So I mean, you really get some, you know, you can smell a little bit of that roasty black malt backbone to it, but at the same time you can smell a little bit of that kind of well-fired, almost bread crusty type quality to it. So there's a little bit of that in this one, but you do get a lovely kind of sweet chocolatey character out of this one, and it's very well balanced between being, you know, sort of a kind of higher 70-80% cocoa chocolate, but you also get some of the more milky chocolate elements out of it. But in fairness, what that might be is the vanilla kind of mixing in with the chocolatey aromas on this one. But yeah, towards the back of the nose you definitely get some of the more roasty, toasty type things. And the thing that really surprised me when I was talking to Hannes was he was telling me he doesn't really use Carafa malt. Most of the malts that he uses are actually like English and Belgian and things like that. I thought most of his malts would be German. He gets quite a number of Swedish malts as well, from what I gather. But yeah, this one, it's really well balanced in the malt base. As I say, you've got a bit of that roasty, toasty black malt sort of thing. You've got a bit of that well-fired bread crust there. You get the chocolate kind of sitting on top of it. And you've got a balance again. You've got a bit of the darker chocolate in there, the darker, higher percentage cocoa, but you've also got the more kind of milky, chocolatey elements coming out of this one too, which is very nice. So yeah, there is almost a wee bit of a kind of brown sugary presence to this one. You do get a little bit of a kind of treacly molasses sort of thing in the middle of the nose from this one, which isn't surprising, especially when it's 10.5%. You know, these boozy flavours really come out as kind of strong caramels and stuff like that for me. So a little bit of a toasty brown sugar thing coming out of this one. You've got some nice woody, there are a few kind of nice woody undertones to this one as well. But yeah, in terms of the kind of milkshakey thing, I have to say, from the aroma, other than the sort of vanilla notes, and in fairness I can see how they might translate to being a little bit sort of lactosey, milkshakey and things, it doesn't come out overly much in the aroma. What I will say about this one is that compared to the other ones that I've had from their brewing so far, you still get a bit of that roasty, toasty backbone to the beer, but it does smell distinctively more mild. And I think, you know, the more and more that I smell of it, you will start to gradually get a little bit of the kind of you will start to get a little bit more of the vanilla coming out in it. So maybe what I'm picking up in vanilla is actually more of the kind of lactosey sort of thing that you would normally expect of this beer. But I have to say the aroma is very, very nice on this one. It's got quite a few layers and things to it, which I really, really like. In terms of the hoppy side of the beer, nice little bit of a darker earthiness to this one. You've got a wee touch of a floral quality. You've got a little bit of a kind of grassiness coming out of it as well, but the hops don't play too big a role in this one. I have to say, I do think the beer does have a really nice and deep aroma, but it's not the most, compared to the other Nerd ones that I remember, it's not quite as pungent as some of them. You really have to kind of dig deep into this one to get exactly what it's going for, but definitely smells, you can tell definitely this one is considerably sweeter than the other Nerd Brewing beers that you might come across actually. So I like how that, I do like how that goes together in this one. It gets a thumbs up from me in that regard. Yeah, on the fruity side of things then, it's quite, again, it comes across as quite mild here. I mean, there's maybe a little bit of a kind of blackcurranty, blackberry thing that comes out later in the aroma, a little bit of a juicy figgy sort of thing. But yeah, there's not really much in the way of fruity characters coming out of this one. The thing that really lingers in the aroma for me is some of the kind of toasty, black malt in this one, and also a bit of the also a bit of the kind of well-fired bread crusty sort of thing. So yeah, I really like how the aroma goes together in this one, but I will say it is quite different from the other Nerd Brewing beers that I've had before. I don't find this aroma as pungent as the other ones that I've had before either. So yeah, an interesting point to make about this one, but this is going to be my first sweet stout from these guys, so that makes it really quite interesting. Just one thing we should say on this, it says on the side here, this one, it does have lactose in it, and it's got vanilla and roasted cocoa nibs in it, so maybe the kind of blacky malt things that I'm picking out are, you know, the roasted cocoa nibs more than anything else, but I suppose there will be a bit of a kind of straight up black malt in this beer as well. The two ways, you know, you're not going to get a colour like this without a bit of black malt. The only other way to do that is a very, very long boil, of course, to caramelise all the sugars. But yeah, this one I think should be really interesting. So this one is the Override, to give it its full title, the Override Imperial Chocolate Milkshake Stout at 10.5% from Nerd Brewing in Malmö here in Skåne in the very south of Sweden. So let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. Slange skål. Oh yeah, that's really very nice, I have to say. You know, I wouldn't expect anything less of these guys. You know, it was the thing that struck me when I met Hannes. He comes across as a very, you know, he's a very, very knowledgeable guy, and he's very passionate about what he does, and you know, he enjoys brewing the beer, and he knows a hell of a lot about this style. He's got a great, you know, he really knows the Imperial Stout better than pretty much anyone I can think of, to be honest with you. You know, he must be, you know, he's producing some of the best Imperial Stouts you're going to find in Europe, and you know, I just think these beers are just ridiculously good. I mean, the standard of beer in Sweden is very, very high, and you know, for a brewery to be the top of the pile on the Untappd ratings in Sweden, especially when there's about 450 breweries, and a lot of them have very good quality, of course. So to be top of the pile in Sweden, it's no mean feat, and you know, to be this good with Imperial Stouts I think is pretty impressive too. But as I said to you, the switch that I tried from them, the New England IPA was very nice. The Finally Barley Wine was great, and I'm really curious about the Saison that I've got as well, actually. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying some more styles from these guys actually over the next little while. So yeah, that's something that we definitely need to look at. So yeah, this, I have to say though, this beer is very, very nicely done. So yeah, definitely, it definitely retains, you can pick out a little bit of the roasty bitterness. It does give you a bit of that in the aftertaste. I think it can, you know, you can't really have an Imperial Stout without a wee bit of a roasty bitterness, to be honest. But yeah, the lactose-y kind of vanilla notes in this, they really come to the fore early on in the flavour. So yeah, let's try and break this beer down a little bit then and just see how we get on. So if we go to the back third of your tongue, go to the very back third of your tongue. At the very back, that's where you get the kind of roasty, black malty type qualities. You can really feel the bitterness of the beer coming out there. You've also got some of the kind of more roasty, cocoa nibby notes, and it's got a bit of that well-fired bread crusty kind of quality there. So the very back third of your tongue, I think, is quite bitter in this one. That's where a lot of the darker bitter elements are coming out of this beer. But then yeah, as you go into the middle third of your tongue, that's where you get the real complexity out of this one, I think. So yeah, in the middle of your palate then, you really, as I say, you've got that roasty black malt backbone in there, you get the kind of cocoa nibs sort of sitting underneath it. You will notice that as the flavour progresses, you start to get that well-fired kind of chocolatey quality out of the beer, and it's quite a, you know, it's almost like a very dry, bitter chocolate, so it's quite high cocoa, you know, 70-80%, but you can feel it's almost like you've kind of taken a Bunsen burner and just charred the chocolate and then grated bits of it. It is almost just a very, very well-fired high cocoa chocolate that you're getting out of this one. But yeah, on top of that, you can feel the lactose just really kind of smoothens the beer out. The lactose just kind of comes in on top of that, and if you go into the very centre of your palate, you get this little kind of circle in the middle of your palate, almost like a little island, and that's where you get some of the kind of boozy brown sugary notes coming out of this one for me. There is an element of brown sugar to this beer, I'm in no two doubts about that. So yeah, it's actually almost kind of quite sweet and quite caramel. It's got an element of a slightly... The brown sugars have got an element, they've got a very slight treacly element to them, but yeah, mainly it's quite a sweet caramel that comes out in the middle of your palate. So as I say, the kind of middle third of your tongue is quite layered. Roasty black malts, you know, the kind of well-fired cocoa notes, then you've got the lactosey, milky qualities on top of that, then you start to get the kind of brown sugary notes sitting on top of it. So you've got 3 or 4 kind of layers there just sitting in the very, very centre of your tongue. If you go towards the front corners of the palate and then move in behind that a little bit, you will pick out a few sort of woody undertones to it as well, which is quite nice. But those are very, very minimal, to be honest with you. If you go to the centre of your palate, then just move forward, you'll feel a little bit of a kind of vanilla note coming out of it. And there are maybe 1 or 2 kind of nutty undertones in there, but the vanilla, I think, definitely comes out a little bit further forward. And the border between the kind of front third of the tongue and the middle third of the tongue is quite is definitely quite interesting. So yeah, you can feel there's almost just a little touch of a kind of... It's almost a bit like a kind of like a well-fired edge of a brownie. If you go to that border between the front third of your tongue and the second third of your tongue, it's almost just got like a kind of brownie, like very, very toasted brownie type cake kind of flavour to it there, which is quite interesting. So yeah, I like that, and it gradually sweetens up the further that you go into the flavour as well. So yeah, that one's... I really like how that one goes together. I like how you've got that border there. But let's go to the hoppy part of the beer, and then we'll come back to that front third of your tongue there. So the back corners of the palate has there's quite a bit of earthiness there. That's developed, you know, that really has developed over time. Actually, it really has developed as I've drunk more and more of this beer. So yeah, nice dark earthiness there. As you go further forward on the palate, you can feel more and more of that darker earthiness coming out. As you push further forward from that, you get some nice kind of floral aromatic notes there. You get a little bit of a kind of... Yeah, the floral notes are quite minimal to be honest, but you can feel it develop to be a little bit more floral. But then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy in my mind. Then behind the front curve of the palate, of course, in the front third of the tongue, that's where you get that nice big oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. So let's focus on that now and talk about the fruity side of it. So yeah, when you take the beer in, it's got a lovely big kind of plummy juiciness to it. It's also got a little touch of a kind of raisiny sharpness, in fairness. But then yeah, I think this is one, it definitely gets drier and more... This is a beer that really gets drier and more bitter, I think, the further you go into the aftertaste. I can really feel like the sort of almost the front part of my tongue drying out a little bit. I really feel that this beer gets a bit drier on the front of the tongue, which is interesting. But yeah, you take the fruity side of this beer in, you get some plummy, you get some juicy kind of plummy notes out of it. There's a little bit of a sharper raisin there, but yeah, the flavour that lingers on the very front part of your palate, I would say. It's a nice kind of juicy figgy note, and then as you move almost to the very tip of the tongue, that's when you get some of the blackcurranty, blackberry type flavours out of this. So yeah, I would say that in terms of like a sweet stout, this one, it does have a lot of sweet stout elements to it, but it really gets more and more bitter, I think, the further you go into the aftertaste. So yeah, it's a beautifully done stout, in honesty. But yeah, in terms of if you're expecting like a fully sweet stout with this one, you know, like a kind of omnipoil cakey type stout, then this really isn't going to give you that. It's going to give you sweetness in the beginning, but then it's going to let you know, this is a, you know, it's almost like a Russian Imperial stout. It's going to give you that nice big kind of roasty, toasty bitterness in the aftertaste. So it's got a really interesting, it's got a really interesting kind of transition to it. This one, very, very sweet and smooth and creamy almost in the beginning, but then it gives you a bit of a roasty, bitter kick the further you go into the aftertaste with it. So yeah, I do like how that element of it comes together. The transition that this beer makes from being lovely and sweet and creamy and oily to being a little bit more dry and bitter and then fruity in the aftertaste. I really like how that all kind of pieces together, actually. So yeah, it gets a massive thumbs up from me, this one, in terms of its flavour profile. I really like this one, actually. I do have another sweet stout from these guys to review quite soon. I'm not sure exactly when I'll publish that one, but that beer is going to be released through Systembolaget, I think in July or so. So you will see me review. I've got, I think Hannes gave me another 3 stouts to review, and of course you're going to see the Saison at some point as well. But this is the one that was released, as I say, in June 2020, and this has turned out very nicely. In terms of the mouthfeel, I don't think we can say anything else other than that this is a full-bodied beer. The carbonation is very smooth. The mouthfeel is really kind of thick, oily and creamy. I don't think we can really argue with that point. In terms of the IBUs, the IBUs I think come out a little bit later in this one. I think this one's got to have at least 50 IBUs. It's got to have at least, you know, kind of some of that in it, to be honest with you. There's a good high level of bitterness from this one, particularly from the earthy side of the hops and the kind of roasty black qualities towards the back of the palate there, definitely. In the back third of the tongue there's quite a lot of bitterness out of this beer, so it's got to be at least 50 IBUs, I think. The malt base, like I say, it's got a lot of layers to it, roasty and toasty on the bottom that gets smoothened out by the lactose adjunct that's in there. Then you have got a good degree of sweetness in the very middle of the palate as well, and you've got some lovely juicy kind of fruity characters that come out of this one as well. So yeah, I really like how this beer, how everything goes together in this one. So it's quite a complex beer, this one. It takes you a little bit of time to get your head around, but in terms of like a sweet stout, which I think is what it's aimed to be, I do find this, it leans more towards the roasty toasty end of the spectrum in terms of the sweet stouts that I've had before, but that takes nothing away from it. It's a lovely beer, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. So I'm going to enjoy the rest of the evening kind of sipping away on this one, and yeah, I look forward to my next review from their brewing as well. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This has been a really interesting beer to review, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on it as well. It's got everything you would kind of want from beer. Lovely oily is the fruitiness in this one. The more I drink of it, the more oily it gets as well. So yeah, this one was the just get the name right. I wanted to say that, I was wanting to say that, the Override. The name just went right out of my head there. But yeah, this one is the Override, and I keep forgetting that they say the exact thing, but an Imperial chocolate milkshake stout at 10.5% from Naird Brewing in Malmö. And it says it's 60 IBU, so I wasn't too far away. So yeah, the Override Imperial chocolate milk stout from Naird Brewing in Malmö. A lovely beer, and it's cool to see them releasing more and more things through Systembolaget as well. So let's leave it at that for this one. Make sure you check out Naird Brewing if you get the chance. Check out my interview that I did with Hannes as well if you want a more in-depth background on the company. But yeah, this has been an awesome beer to review for you, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed this one. Pretty much any of the stouts you get from Naird Brewing are going to be very impressive, so if you like a sweet stout, go for something like this. If you like a more roasty toasty stout, try one of the coffee editions or something like that. And yeah, if you find any other styles of beer from these guys, have a go at them, because they always tend to be pretty damn good as well. So yeah, this one was the Override 10.5% Imperial chocolate milk stout from Naird Brewing in Malmö here in Skåne in the very south of Sweden. A brewery that I really recommend that you check out, and they are starting to export to England, Australia, Japan, I think China and America a little bit as well. So there are crates of these beers going out a little bit more. So keep an eye out for this brewery. Definitely one of the Swedish ones that you want to check out. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Naird Brewing as well. And we will definitely return to these guys at some point in the very near future. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys soon. Check out Naird Brewing in Malmö, and I'll catch you guys later. You will see more reviews from these guys very soon. Slange, skål, cheers.